Your overall reaction to the hearing this week and Pam Bondi's performance, combativeness?
I don't think she did very well. She came with a book full of insults, one for each congressperson. She obviously had one for me. And, you know, I've been there when Merrick Garland is there. Obviously, politically, I don't agree with him, but he performed much better in terms of at least not looking bad. And unfortunately, we didn't get the answers we wanted about the Epstein Files Transparency Act from her.
Did you get any of the answers you wanted?
No, but she did come off her script and engage with me about this production of documents, where she admitted that 40 minutes after I pointed out to the DOJ that they had over-redacted some of the documents, they did unredact those documents. So it's clear they've made mistakes in the document production. At least she acknowledges that tacitly. And it's clear that their work is not done here yet.
And I want to go to some of those unredacted files. You and Congressman Ro Khanna said names of some of the men who were redacted shouldn't have been redacted. They then sent that back to you, and 2 of them were not redacted. But on Friday, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche accused you and Congressman Khanna of unmasking those people, saying they had nothing to do with Epstein or Maxwell. They were from an FBI lineup years ago. What's your response to that?
Well, 3 hours before Todd Blanche himself unredacted those names, I told him in an X post, which I know he read because he reposted it, that those may be men in a lineup. And then I went on TV and said those may be men in a lineup. And it was actually the DOJ who released those names, which is fine, but they omitted the context that I provided, which is these may be men in a lineup. Now, there were 2 men who needed to be named, one of whom has already resigned. The emirate, who's a sultan, resigned as a CEO of a very large company because we released his name. And there's another man, Leslie Wexner, I'll add him to the list with Jess Staley and Leon Black, who need to be investigated right now. They've appeared in these files. Leslie Wexner is the one who, you know, Pam Bondi said, oh, he's appeared thousands of times in these documents. We're not covering up anything. But I pointed out to her, they redacted his name from the one document that says child sex trafficking co-conspirator. And my question is, who is the person at DOJ who redacted Leslie Wexner's name from a document titled child sex trafficking with co-conspirator next to his name?
And I want to say right now that Wexner denies, and they say he was not a co-conspirator. Wexner has a statement. The assistant U.S. attorney told Mr. Wexner's legal counsel in 2019 that Mr. Wexner was neither co-conspirator nor target in any respect. Mr. Wexner cooperated fully by providing background information on Epstein and was never contacted again. But I'd like to move on if we can. Yesterday, the DOJ sent Congress a letter explaining the reason for all these reactions. So you are not satisfied with that? No,
they're citing deliberative process privilege in order not to release some of the documents. The problem with that is the bill that Ro Khanna and I wrote says that they must release internal memos and notes and emails about their decisions on whether to prosecute or not prosecute, whether to investigate or not investigate. It's important they follow that, because then we could find why they didn't prosecute Leslie Wexner. What was the decision tree there? And also why in 2008 they gave Jeffrey Epstein such a light sentence. And finally, I know the DOJ wants to say they're done with this document production. The problem is they've taken down documents before we were able to go over to the DOJ and look at the unredacted versions. They took down some of the most significant documents, 2 of them involving Virginia Giuffre's case and other things. The picture of Epstein in a room where it's got CIA written on the boxes, that's been taken down. We want to be able to look at all these files. They can't keep those documents down after they've already produced them. I want to talk to you about one of the moments in the hearing, and that is the Attorney General would not look at the Epstein survivors behind her. Did that surprise you? I think that was kind of cold on her part. I think she was afraid to. And look, these survivors would love to have a meeting. It's not about Bill Clinton and it's not about Donald Trump. This Epstein Files Transparency Act was about getting these survivors justice.
We normally commence an impeachment process against Kristi Noem.
Well, I absolutely believe that Kristi Noem has committed impeachable offenses, and I'm leading the charge along with Robin Kelly, my colleague from Illinois, in calling for her impeachment. You are the head of an agency that is rogue and out of control in our communities. We saw that with the killing of Renee Good. We saw it with the killing of Alex Preddy. And frankly, we've seen it in the way in which the tactics that ICE has carried out their mission here in Minnesota over the course of these multiple weeks. So Kristi Noem needs to absolutely go. She needs to resign, be impeached. And by the way, she's really a detriment to this administration. And, you know, I believe that the buck stops at the top with Donald Trump, but Kristi Noem is carrying this out. And at the end of the day, this administration is out of control and she needs to go.
Congresswoman, I have been talking to some of your colleagues about this kind of, you know, one agency shutdown that we're currently in with DHS. Democrats have thrown out on the table the kinds of reforms they want to see at ICE and with CBP before you guys are willing to sign on and pass DHS funding. What I have gathered from my reporting is that you guys aren't interested in providing the Republicans an off-ramp here, that you believe that the public sentiment is on your side after seeing the shooting deaths of Alex Preddy and Renee Good, that at the end of the day, there are certain things that are worth holding the line and frankly, and crassly during an election year to make very clear to people where the party stands. Is that where you are as well, just not interested in providing Republicans an easy off-ramp and instead holding firm to these demands that the party has asked for?
Well, I took an oath to the Constitution, not to the president. No, by the way, so did my Republican colleagues that I serve with every single day. And, you know, I don't give a damn if it's an election year or if it's the start of this administration. At the end of the day, this administration is out of control. The reason you're seeing the American people turn against the administration is because the tactics they are using are not going after the worst of the worst in this country. The tactics they are using, and by the way, this weekend, I'm back in Minnesota from being in session last week, and they are still using tactics like racial profiling to pull people over. They've moved these mass groups of ICE agents sort of out of the limelight because public sentiment has gone so far against them and because Minnesotans stood up so fundamentally, but they are still racially profiling. And right now, we've been talking a lot about what we need them to change on the streets as they conduct their responsibilities. But your conversation about detention centers, I spent almost 3 hours on Friday at my office back here in Minnesota meeting with 3 individuals privately who had been held in those detention centers. And I tell you what, those demands for me, as I talk to more people who are experiencing the dehumanization of ICE and DHS, those demands are just growing. So Democrats need to hold the line. The Senate needs to hold the line. I will not forgive anyone who doesn't stand their ground at this moment in time. And I don't think the American people will either, regardless of whether it's an election year.
Congresswoman, let me have you listen to what Border Czar Tom Homan had to say on Thursday about this drawdown of these federal agents. Watch this.
This is like any other surge operation. L.A., it ended. Los Angeles, it ended. Charlotte, it ended. New Orleans, it ended. This is ending the surge, but we're not going away. And let me say this. There are over 800 flights a day land in St. Paul, Minnesota. If we need to come back, we'll come back.
Should the American people believe for 1 minute that the celebrated and advertised drawdown of federal agents from Minneapolis, from Minnesota is an actual thing?
Well, I think what will tell us that, and we need this information, is they have been running several deportation flights out of Minnesota full of individuals, some of them U.S. citizens.
This is a brutal day for Trump. Just look at these interviews. Has this ever happened to any other president? When we're on a Sunday, still basically in the first year of his term, he's getting it like this. It's not like he's at the end of 4 years, when tensions are high and a lot of anger has built up, which sometimes happen to presidents. But on this Sunday afternoon, there were 2 brutal interviews. One was by Republican Thomas Massie, who absolutely tore into Donald Trump. Then Pam Bondi had one of the worst interviews of Trump's presidency. And you know, he watched it. Whenever Massie does something, Trump usually goes on a rant. And Truth Social, we have said it before, he watches these interviews. At the same time, you had Democrat angle. At the same time, you had Democrat Angie Craig going after him and attacking Republicans on a completely different network. And she was also turning into him. 2 brutal interviews happening almost at the same time, showing that a wide ideological spectrum is turning against him. Craig isn't even a strongly progressive Democrat, which makes this even more significant. Earlier in his term, she spotted some of Trump's anti-immigration moves. She probably deserves more accountability for that, and now she seems to be pivoting. Still, it's better to admit you were wrong than to refuse to change. But it really shows how badly Trump has messed up. When he first came back to power, many Democrats and almost all Republicans were willing to let him do whatever he wanted. They obeyed in advance, even though we kept saying they shouldn't. Now everything has fallen apart and they are opposing him on the files. And on ICE and immigration enforcement, this is how weak Trump looks right now.